All right, so I guess if there's had to be a title to this talk, it's going to be stage fright. Okay, stage fright. You might wonder why I'm bringing that up. I completely forgot we were going to have a talk today, so I'm going to make stage fright work. I'm sorry. Anyway. Okay, so I'm back on, right? You can hear me? Okay, good, thank you. All right, stage fright. Well, I have this phrase that I remember from a poem that when I was at Hazy Moon, that one of the Japanese monks that visited from Japan had, he wrote out for me. He could barely speak English, but he could write this poem out. And I remember the line that's been with me for years and years. It's basically talking about, I'll paraphrase it, I don't know where I'm going. And this is only one line of it. I don't know where I'm going until I look behind me to see where my tracks are, the footprints that I've left behind. And I realized this is something I've been carrying around with me. And I realized, like the other day, how much I strategize everything. Just to go, let's say, wipe my face off in the morning. I have a whole routine worked out. Just to go pick up a pencil across the room. I have this old strategy I work out. What's the best way to do this? How do I do it? How do I get this? These are practical strategies. But then we have these strategies, I know, of us worrying about things. And we're always trying to figure out the best way. What bill should I pay first? Which way should I drive to get to a certain place? These are still practical things, but we tend to carry this off, way off the mark, into kind of our fantasies of the past and our fantasies of the future, where we try to create a future that's safe. We look back over our past. I do this all the time. I have these reveries where I go back and I say, well, if I'd only done this back there, back when I had that chance to change it all, I wouldn't be here right now, which is probably false, because there's probably no way I could ever get anywhere but right here, right now, with this place. And I feel that I've wasted a lot of time and energy in my life just wandering around in my head, trying to come up with the best solutions instead of just being here and just doing things and being as spontaneous as I can. And once we give that up, then we have to face our own stage fright, because then we're afraid. What if I blow it? What if I can't make the right decision? It's all going to be terrible. We have all these feelings of, what do you call it? Disaster, outlandish expectations of failure and disaster. And those things seem to haunt us and haunt me sometimes, until I shake it off and I try to forget about things. I mean, everything in the world right now is all about strategizing. Who are you going to vote for? What should Joe Biden do? What are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? How are we going to save the planet? Those take big plans. Saving the planet is a big plan. I don't think any one person can think of these things through. I think these are things out of our control. I think we live in chaos. We try to make harmony with chaos and make deals with chaos. And I don't think those deals really work out. I think it's all about shutting our minds off if we can, or allowing them to quiet themselves and to sit on our cushions and to train. Just because I didn't have anything prepared today, and I don't know, maybe I'm blowing this whole talk, um, but I feel that I would be able to just get up here and just go on about all these things and try to make sense of it, um, or not make sense of it and just let it be, is because I've trained. I've always trained. We've sat here on the cushion. I've tried to get those thoughts out of my mind, tried to find the pulse of life by breathing and just training. I think the Greeks said it, that we can have all sorts of great ideas, but once we hit stress, we always fall back on our training. And I just really want to urge us to think about that, that every time we sit, every time we meditate, every time we do something in harmony with our best selves, or harmony, when we drop all the strategizing, we look at our stage fright and we just exist. I think if we could just do that, we are training ourselves. We're training ourselves to be here, be now. Be now. I could just stop talking, right? I could just stop this whole talk. I could just forget about it, right? There's a lot of options in now. There are no options in the past. There's no options in the future. We tend to tell ourselves there's lots of options in the future. The only options we have are right here, right now. And it's usually in between the thoughts that we have. It's often that we make our best decisions when we just allow ourselves to act. Just to, I think there's something that's been said that big decisions make themselves. Decisions actually make themselves. You just have to be present for them and act within those, whatever those circumstances are. And let me go back to the training. I've been a poor trainer in Zen. I really have been. I didn't even get a chance to participate in the last Zazenkai that we had, Sashin. Why? Well, a lot of it was I was busy training to be a teacher, busy training to do all of these other things that we try to do. Got to lose weight, got to get stronger, got to last longer, got to be on top of it all, dominate my situation, create more options. Why have as many options as possible? And really, I think the only real option we have is right now. It's right now. And each one of these options, each one of these moments are leading to one thing we know that is out there. That one thing, that kind of fuzzy vision that we have. We're heading off into this future, and one day we know we're going to have our last moment. And isn't that scary? It's like, well, I've thought about it recently. It's like, well, then I just end. I mean, I'm having a great time right now, and all of that's going to end. I go, well, you're not having such a great time, but I still don't want it to end. I think a great line from Hemingway was in For Who the Bell Tolls. He was contemplating, the hero's contemplating his whole death because he knew he's going to have to die in a war. And it was just talking about, he was sad just to see the whole show. He wanted to be there for the show, but the whole show was going to go. And then we come to stage fright again. In a show, we often have a lot of stage fright. How many people are completely frightened of public speaking? It's like it's even more oppressive in some people's mind than death, I think. Um, Giving up the show, working our way inch by inch, moment by moment, to one day we will no longer be here. And we know that's coming. And yet we still spend a lot of time on fussing around with, well, should I get this app or not? Should I actually, you know, carry the garbage out or not? Or I think with our training, it actually prepares us for all transitions that we make in life, all the ones that we see as walls that we have in front of us. Every perhaps affliction that could ever befall us, and everything and every fear that we have is all wound up into the stage fright. And I think training, sitting, simply breathing, feeling life pulse through us is enough. And I hope I can follow that into the future. Sporadically as I do, as I guess we all kind of do. I think I'm at the end of it. Okay, so if you feel like asking questions, I don't know if there's any questions that need to be asked, but whatever you want to say or give me comments or anything, I'd love to hear it. Yes, Steve. And now I can't see everybody here, so I'm on my phone, so
you have Daniel, Michael, who was somebody over here, Sandy, and somebody else.
Oh, wow. Can you do me the favor of being the gatekeeper and picking people?
Sure.
Okay, so go ahead, pick somebody.
What's it?
Okay.
Okay, Daniel.
Great talk. It made me think of, and kudos to you, it made me think of that song, See the Man with the Stage Fright, standing up there giving all his might, and he got caught in the spotlight, but when he got to the end, he wanted to start all over again. I think it was about Bob Dylan. Remember that song?
Oh, is that? Yes, that's right. It was, I think, about him. You're right.
So that's you. You're the man with the stage fright, getting up there, giving all his might, and you got caught in the spotlight. And when you got to the end, you want to start all over again.
Okay. All right. We'll do number 2. No, just kidding. No, that's great. Thank you. That's a great comment.
Who's the other?
Steve?
Steve?
Hey, Mark. Thank you. It's funny, just the other day, a couple of days ago, I was thinking the exact same thing as, why can I not just let life unfold? And my favorite saying now is, let's just see what happens. Because I've done the plotting and everything you've mentioned. And it's also nice to see that by you speaking, I get to realize I'm not a freak. I'm just like everybody else. So I really appreciate it. I feel when I do sit, it's a wonderful experience, because all that stuff seems to fall by the wayside, and somehow I need to find a way to carry it out into my normal life of everyday things. And I think that that's a start. Is I want to just let life unfold instead of trying to get in there and thinking I have the power to make it happen the way I want it to happen. And one thing I realize is I don't know what's best for me most of the time. But also, I'd like to give a shout out to Get Smart, because the control is the only thing that can control chaos. I've watched that for years on that TV show. So thank you, Mark.
That's great. Great. I'm getting all these pop, culture references from this. This is great. Yes, get smart. He was talking the shoe phone. Now there was a huge advantage, that we now have. Actually, they're on our pockets, but that's true. That was really kind of that really breaks down and kind of shows us the comedy of life through all these things we try to do. It is. I think it's. I think as soon as we take it too seriously, the battle is lost. I think it's really true. It is the battle. If we can at least laugh, it's not so bad. It's not such a battle. What do you think? Thanks, Steve.
Sandy, and then Badri.
Thank you for your talk. It was very good. I like off the cuff. I wanted to say that listening to you struck me when I first started practicing. I didn't really look at my own fears. I didn't look at how I was trying to manage to get through life, really. I was looking at events. When I sat on the cushion, I saw events that had happened in my past and just a little bit of how they affected my life. But as I sat longer and longer, I had a friend who you could have been telling her story. Everything was planned. She was so concerned about the future and the past. And it really struck me that she wasn't really living her life. She was so caught up in the fears and the future and past that she really wasn't enjoying her present moments and being able to see that there really was just the present. So when you started talking about those things, you brought that experience up to me. But recently, I realized that I have to start facing some of my fears. And I realized that, the past is really, there's nothing you can do about it. And the only thing that's possible to do anything about is just be in the present and experience what there is to experience. I don't think we have a huge amount of sway on the outcome of our future. And there really isn't, I almost don't even see it as a future anymore. I see it as just another now moment coming, because it's so hard to define what's going to happen to us that it's really not worth stressing yourself out over, because it only makes you more fearful, and it takes away from living. It takes away from experiencing the good there is to experience. So these are insights that have really helped me to be able to see where I need to be focused. And it seems like you've gotten there too. You can see where you need to focus and how you need to direct your practice. So it was a really good talk.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed it. And
Audrey, and then John, and then
can I respond first?
oh, sorry.
I understand there's a lot of fear. We tend to, or you can have a lot of joy. You can have a lot of great expectations. There's novels written on that. And then a lot of great disaster, dashed expectations. I think mostly listening to something about brain can only process about 8K or something like that at one time, or 8 bits as they related in computer time. And I think it's true because I think I think it's one continuous path from the past to the future, and our mind has to chop it up into little bits just so we can take it in. It's like eating food, right? You can't eat the whole sausage at once. You have to chew it up. And so we tend to get, I think, a little confused, when in those little bits that we can process and deal with. So that's just one of the things I would say. But yeah, there's a lot of fear in the future, and there's a lot of fake false fear, that we create, our all our projections. So anyway, I'll talk to Baudry now.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
A really quick comment. I'm very impressed by your talk. I love that it was spontaneous. I kept looking over at you just because I couldn't believe it. I was like, is he reading off notes, or is that through the top of his head? And that's pretty hard to do. And I'm not sure whether that was sitting on the cushion or just you being a teacher.
I have a lot of training, in front of, high school students. You got to come up with something pretty fast. They're expecting it. And if you're not, then someone else will think of something very quickly.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for that. Okay, Jane.
John is next.
Thank you, Mark. Great talk. One of the things that really hit me was how you talked about that our training, and as we train over time and it becomes more a part of who we are, what we do on the cushion, that training then becomes, when we come into these situations in life, these moments, we can then fall back on our training and act in a skillful way to be in this moment and do what's right, for lack of a better word, in that moment, and how training allows us to do that. And I think somebody once said at a talk, I was at not even a talk, we were in the living room at the Zendo, and somebody said that a teacher had once said to them that a lot of karma is just bad habits that we in the moment just kind of like go and kind of pull out. And that our training, I feel like, helps us to have something other than that bag of bad habits and bad karma to dig from. We have, this toolbox of our training to rely on. And
I would say you're right about that. I think the thing what you realize, you really don't realize you're training till you forget, so you blow it, till you blow your training, and you find that you're caught up and wheeling around and turning over and all that samsara, and just being a complete ass. I would say that, and once you come back from that, you realize how important it is. And we always hopefully try to do better, I guess, and train more.
I feel that the training also helps us to kind of find the Dharma a little bit like everywhere in life. I just wanted to share that this kind of happened to me a little bit recently. Some of you may know that as part of my job, I read a lot of television scripts. And so I think it might have been a wise man that once said all of life's mysteries are answered on television. But one thing that came up, a couple of things came up recently, and one that I love is, I don't know if any of you watch Ted Lasso, but Ted Lasso, he plays a soccer coach or a football coach in the UK. And one of his players does something and he's feeling terrible about it and whatever's happening. And he calls him over and he says, "Hey, so-and-so," he says, "Do you know what the happiest animal in all the world is?" And he's like, "No, what's the happiest animal in all the world?" He says, "A goldfish. Do you know why?" And he's like, "No, coach, why?" 10-second memory. Go play soccer.
That's great.
To me, that was very zen. I mean, when I heard that, I was like, oh, whenever I'm like out and about and something happens, or like I'm on the golf course and something terrible, wherever I am, I'm always like, got to be a goldfish and move on. So, and the other one that came up real quick is just that I read a lot of time travel scripts, and one thing I learned recently is that no matter what happens, you can't go back in the past in a time machine and change a fixed point. Where you're at now in this moment is where you're at now. And if you had a time machine and you could go back and you came back, you'd be right here now. So stop worrying about the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark.
That
That was
confirms
awesome.
my theory. That
Thank you,
confirms
Mark.
my theory. Okay.
Mike?
Very good talk, Mark. Thank you. It's funny, I do something in reverse to what you do. Instead of training, I just dive in head first and hope I survive it just to get it over with. And when you're talking about fear and stuff, I find that instead of planning scares me. So I just go, okay, just jump in, just, see what happens. Doesn't always succeed, but I find that what you say with your training and stuff like that, that it does work. But it's funny because I've never been a good trainer. I've never been one who really plans something out. Somebody says, okay, you got to do it this way. Okay, I just jump in and I'll goof it up most of the time, but sometimes I get it successful. And I find that it's to avoid the unpredictable. And I wonder sometimes if training is something that is used to avoid the unpredictable. You try to imagine every possible scenario and prepare for it. And then you go through it and none of the scenarios you prepared for happened. And so I don't know if this makes sense, but I just, I find that you and I suffer the same thing. I have stage fright in a sense, but I just jump in, and sometimes I put my foot in my mouth, and other times I trip over my feet, and other times I get it right. But it's just an interesting thing that I was listening to while I was listening to you. I was sitting there going, "Wow, he's human too." So I just want to say thank you for your talk, and it kind of made me look at myself and go, okay, I learned something about myself today by listening to your talk. So thank you very much.
Sure, thanks. I'm glad that, I think I didn't really realize I was training so much by meditating, because I just felt like I've got to do something because I'm too crazy without it. And so then I realized, as I've been going through life, after 20 years go by, right, Peter and Jane, you get through these certain milestones and you realize, wow, it appears that, gosh, this training's good. There's something really good about this. I didn't even think about it, and now it's just happening. So in many ways, just sitting and noticing the moment, you're throwing yourself in it, just like you are. Mike, you're throwing yourself in the moment. You become unpredictable yourself. You become a one with unpredictability. So it's not so much, well, I trained, I thought about all these contingencies, and now something else is wrong, which is what always happens. So if you are throwing yourself in there all full force, I think you because you've done this before. In the past, you've thrown yourself sitting. You made yourself sit because you didn't want to sit because there was something better to do, or whatever it was, obligations or whatever. But you find that sitting, that whatever you pushed off to sit, wasn't necessary that much. And you realize it when you finish. So I guess throwing yourself into sitting, throwing yourself into the moment, it's okay. All right.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say that the future is just a mental construct, and it's like you're using it like it sounds like the way you used it is like a tinker toy or, pickup sticks, where you're constantly trying to create how you want it to be, how you think the ultimate reality should be. And it doesn't seem like it's any different than playing a game, because the future as you want it to be doesn't exist. And all your manipulation is just wasting time playing a game, and you're not really in the present moment. You're just hiding in this game or story of the future, how you expect it to be. Well, you have to realize the only thing that's real is now. That little moment is now. That's it. It seems that I can do all the planning in the world about how I want tomorrow to be, or hopefully my next 10 years or whatever I've got left. And if I do that, if I spend that time trying to plan that out and try to manipulate it to be what I want it to be, well, I just missed a whole bunch of life. So you have to realize that things that are mental constructs like that, they're no more than reading a fantasy, or reading a book or a poem or something, that it's just not real. It's like you can't step into a book and say, hey, I like this future, I want to be like this, I want to be here. It just doesn't work. It just takes away from now.
I do that all the time, though. I'm always finding a good book. I don't want to put it down, and I hate what it is.
Yeah, I know. But, there's
But I
very,
think you're right. I think you're right. By thinking of it as a game, we don't take it as seriously. And
Yeah.
in a game, you can always walk away from a game, right?
right.
All those mental conceptions you created, well, as soon as you're really in reality, it's like, well, okay, that was a game. Usually, and some people are very cynical about that.
But if you start thinking about it and you get caught up in it, then you're completely gone. You're not in the present moment. It's like when you're sitting and a thought comes and it grabs you, and you grab it back, and like you just, all of a sudden you're no longer sitting, you're in a fantasy world with this thought. And do you know what I mean? About like how what was it, I don't remember who said it, about not letting your thoughts, not bringing them in and offering them tea. Just let them go, because that's all they are, is just your thoughts. They're not really real, and they're just taking away from your moments to live. So the best way to live is in the now as much as you can, because that's where you get the most good, the most, you actually feel like you've had experiences and you're growing and you're changing. And, it's like, it's a exciting, much more exciting way to live than it is to dwell in past things or future.
Yes, where do you dwell? I think you're right about that with that word. Where do you dwell?
Yeah. So
Thank you.
It's like giving up. So thank you.
Anybody else have a question for Mark?
Or comment.
Or comment?
That's
Comment, question, corrections.
Additions?
If you need to smite me, that's okay.
You're the teacher that does corrections.
I don't know. I've been corrected by a lot of students, my assumptions. They've taught me so much about my assumptions that really when you are there with students, that there's each one is a whole nother world, and you have to just allow that world to be there. It's fighting the waves. You can't, you know, you can fight it all you want, but one day you're going to get sucked out to sea. So, and you'll realize how stupid you were.
So anybody else?
Well, that seemed like a fair amount of questions to answer.
Yes.
What about Jane and Peter?
Oh, okay.
No comments.
Well, I thought it was a really good talk, Mark. I
Thank you.
really liked your insights and the way you let people look in at your mind and enjoy it, as it were. And so I did enjoy your talk. One thing that while you were talking came up in my mind that I was wondering about and would think about more, but it was, you're talking about strategy and how much the world right now is strategizing about everything, and I have a feeling that another word for strategy, you know, is skillful means. It's just like the opposite of it, because it's self-oriented. So it's it's creating someone's personal agenda, and skillful means is like the other always. And so I wondered if it isn't the world working on skillful means.
Well, there's all kinds of prognosticators, you know, pundits and scientists and big thinkers and institutes and billionaires thinking of the future and trying constantly to, and they're pulling in so many different ways and everything. Skillful means, I think skillful means is what nature is. I think what skillful means are allowing reality to be a partner of whatever we're doing. I think it wasn't Suzuki Roshi said that spring always arrives. It does come. I know it's getting a little earlier these days, but it does arise. It does come, and the birds know it. Everything knows it, and the plants grow, and everything continues on. And we tend to worry about, well, climate change. As soon as you say, "Oh, the flowers are blooming now," oh, what? Well, you know, we have a lot of worry around climate change, and as we should. But if we just stopped, if people realize, if we just stopped a lot of this meaningless activity, the planet could heal itself. And I think a lot of strategizing is meaningless activity when you come down to it.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you just said that, I believe the first year of the COVID pandemic at its worst, the skies all over in different big cities had turned blue again because nobody was outside. We were all sitting at home.
Yeah. So the society is all these different forces, and we try to control it, nature all the time. But you know, that's what's so great about nature is it's really in many ways uncontrollable. You can't control it. It's wild. It's going to do things, and it will heal itself in its own way. It might have to eliminate many people, but on the way. We are overpopulated, so they've been talking about this for hundreds of years. So it's a wonder we've made it this far.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for your talk, Mark. It was really very interesting. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Really, really. I if I had trained so much, I couldn't have done it. So I'll just put it that way. Thanks for your training. That's what I want to say.
No, you're welcome. Thanks to Dan, who said, you know, what's the last line of that? He's ready at the end. He's ready to start all over again. That's good.